All right, we'll get started here. Hello everybody, and welcome to this Edmentum webinar about Pennsylvania's Shikellamy School District and their Virtual Academy. My name is Sarah, and I will be moderating today's presentation. So before we get started, I just want to introduce you to the GoToWebinar technology that we'll be using today and talk a little bit about how you can participate in today's webinar. On the screens is a sample of the attendee interface. A larger viewer window is where you are seeing the presentation, and you will also see a smaller control panel where you can access the different participation features during the session. And so for today's session, you can ask questions by typing them into the questions box, and we will reserve about 10 minutes to answer questions at the end of the presentation. You have joined today's webinar listening through your computer's speaker system by default, but if you would like to call in using your phone, just locate your audio pane and select Use Telephone. The dial-in information and access code will be displayed once you select that. And so I next just want to spend a couple minutes talking about Edmentum. Today's webinar is going to feature our virtual learning partnership with Shikellamy Virtual Academy. And this presentation is designed to reinforce our commitments to you of making it easier to support the learning needs of every student. Our commitments as an organization and our approach to assessment, instruction, and data really lay the foundation for how we support our customers and your unique learning programs. So we do this through a focus on 4 key areas. Simple technology that is intuitive, easy to use, and designed to save you time. Actionable real-time data that helps inform decisions and guide your instruction. Quality content and assessments that are both proven and pedagogically sound, and a passion for customer success and being your trusted implementation partner. So before we get into Shikellamy Virtual's great story, I'd like to introduce to you your presenter for today, Eric Attinger. Eric is developed Shikellamy School District's virtual learning program from the ground up and is currently the district's Virtual Academy coordinator. Eric has been with Shikellamy School District for over 7 years, previously holding roles as a tutor and 21st Century Community Learning Center's programs director. So with that, Eric, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you.
Hello, thank you very much. As you said, my name is Eric Attinger, and I'm in charge of the Shikellamy Virtual Academy. Our program is in its 2nd year now, so last year was its 1st year. As you can see on the screen, we had 78 students in our program. We have students in our program from grade 6 all the way up to 12. Just to give you a little bit more of a background, our school district had tried this in the past about 2 other times. This would have been the 3rd attempt. And they were kind of a little iffy because in the past, obviously it wasn't very successful. I think the most students they had in the program was 3. So they kind of let our program start with, they were kind of a little shaky on it and gave me 3 years, a 3-year commitment to try to make this work. And as you can see from our numbers and our demographics, we did pretty well our 1st year with recruiting students. And we do use the Ed Options Academy portion. So Edmentum's teachers are our teachers that we use. They've been great with communicating with our students and things like that. But year 1 is a success. Year 2 is already starting off to be another great success, even better actually, which is always the goal, to improve. But yeah, so with that said, I guess we can go to the next slide and I can kind of talk to you a little bit about what has worked and things that we kind of had issues with starting up. So the original challenge, as I kind of mentioned, this has been a topic of the districts for a while now. They kind of lost interest for a little bit for the 2 failed attempts in the past. But as you know, districts lose a lot of students to outside cyber schools. And how the state of Pennsylvania, where we're based, how that's set up is if a student wants to go to another cyber school, they have the option free of charge for the family, and then the district pays for it. So we're losing out on a lot of funding dollars, paying for students to go to other schools because we did not provide our own. So we knew that we needed to provide more options and flexibility for the students. In the past, things hadn't worked out. They didn't have a strong enough focus. They weren't being flexible enough for the students. So I talked with the administration about what kind of issues they had in the past. And we got a plan together, and they handed me the reins and said, go ahead and see what you can do here. And I knew that was a big need to bring dollars back, but also to make sure that we're helping the students who needed another school option. As you'll see here, a lot of students have social anxiety and bullying That's one of the big reasons that students join our program, but there are many reasons. We help students who are pregnant and expecting babies. We adapt with them. Students who need to work more to help out their families, we work with them as well. But there were many students that needed another option that Shikellamy really wasn't providing, so they talked with me, reached out, and we decided to give the program a shot. So we can go to the next slide. The program goals, as I talked, we need to win back the students who went to the other programs. Obviously, if you go to another school and something's working, they might stay there, and there's really going to be no need for them to look for a new school when they're in one of these other cyber schools. So I had to find a way to win back the students. So what I did is started reaching out to students who the in-person learning was just not working, and we wanted to provide an outstanding virtual learning option with more personal connection, regular communication. So we needed to find a way how I was going to meet with these kids and bring them back into the district. Next slide. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about the recruitment process. That was something we had to, that was pretty much our first starting point. We had a lot of students outside the district, and we needed to figure out a way to get those back because that's where we were losing money. Our district was spending around 11 grand on regular students, close to 30 grand on special ed students. So you can see how quickly the money flies out of our district and into other schools and cost our taxpayers as well as our district a lot of money. So what I did was work with our district administration office to identify the students that were attending other programs but were still funded under our district. So I reached out to our payroll department specifically. They had a list of students' names, their parents, phone numbers, email addresses, and addresses where they lived. So that was beneficial. I used our PowerSchool system and then as well as their printouts of the billing they got. And I reached out to parents. I tried every route. Some of them answered right away to phone calls. I first did a phone call. If they didn't answer, I would send a letter or an email or both. And the goal was really to get a face-to-face meeting with them. I wanted to talk with them and ask them the reasons that they were in these other cyber schools, get their interest, let them know that we were starting a program. But I really wanted to have a face-to-face meeting because I always think it's best if you want to sell your program and your ideas and make a personal connection, that face-to-face, in-person meeting is crucial. So the district office providing me that information was crucial. Otherwise, I would have had no way to find out who these students were and would have only been able to stop the bleeding from kids leaving. But the big money was outside of the district, so our main goal was to bring the money back. So that's kind of what we did. Like I said, went through payroll, did phone calls, emails, and letters. And then the final piece was getting them in for a face-to-face meeting. There were a few that didn't want to meet face-to-face and were already convinced on our conversation, but I still had them meet with me later on in the year. Anyway, it's always good, like I said, for face-to-face meetings to really get to know the people and let them know what we're trying to plan out. So we can go to the next slide. Our success to date, as you can see, we had 78 students enrolled in the first year of the program. We did attract some of the students back to the district, which was a huge amount of money brought back. We estimate in a generous term around 500,000, but they said it could very well be more when they start crunching the numbers more. But we just kind of saw already once we hit that $500,000 mark, they called it a huge success. Like I said, we only actually had the most ever in a program in the previous attempts were 3 students, and they used a different software. Didn't really provide a lot for the students, not a lot of communication involved, and I knew that was lacking. So I wanted to make sure this was a success. There was a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, especially knowing that they had already tried this and already failed twice. But as you can see, our system has definitely worked and brought back students. And by the end of the year, to have 78 students means that we were meeting the needs of the students and they didn't end up leaving and going to other programs. They really appreciated our school, our new virtual academy, and stuck through it through the year. And we had actually a lot of them continue into year 2 if they didn't graduate in the past. So we do have students rolling over now, but as I said, a very big success with 78 students by the end of the year. Next slide. So here's the feedback so far. The students really appreciate working with our regular having regular communication, working with the teachers from Edmentum. We get a lot of good feedback about that there's more over communication than under communication, which they're used to. So they like that they get regular emails about student updates, how they're always available for phone calls, always reaching out when students had issues. So we got great feedback on the teachers in each individual class. They also liked the availability of the online teachers. Like I said, they were always available for phone calls. Some of the teachers would answer later hours if it suited the student. If a student was working, they sometimes would go out of their way to make sure the student was learning and getting the proper help they needed. And even the ones who were doing well, it was just nice that they said they still had the teacher reach out and checking on them, even though they were doing well, just showing the constant communication that they were thinking about them and they were paying attention to them and really cared about their studies. Our parents also liked knowing that we had a virtual program lab, which is a safe spot for their children to work. Basically, I'll describe that, and that is, I think, one of the reasons our program worked. We have a virtual program lab, and actually outside of my office where I'm doing this right now, we have 2 classrooms, one with an aide in it and another one with a classroom teacher and an aide there. And our teachers there kind of as extra support on top of the Edmentum teachers. So she sits down, works through their coursework with them in the day, and maybe gives them, if they have a problem, immediate issue with math or science, they can actually come work with our teacher who's in our lab, and they're able to get some hands-on help there on top of the teacher. Another nice thing is the Ed Options teachers work really well with Mrs. Gittens, who is our teacher in here in the lab. They communicate with her just as much as the students and the parents, so we're always in the loop. Mrs. Gittens and the teachers work together to create educational plans for the students and make sure they're working at the pace they need to. Like I said, the parents like that it's a safe space for their child to be. And what we mean by that is it's just, we have a lot of parents who are working during the day. Most parents work during the day, and if your kid's in cyber school and they might not have anywhere to go, they might be working from home. And for some parents, that's a little bit worrisome because many of them are not, 16 or 17. We do have some middle school kids, and staying at home, one, not having anybody around, you don't know what they can get into, and two, not having anybody there for help. So we like offering this virtual lab here. The parents love, they can send their students on the bus in the morning. We bus them back home at the end of the school day. So it's almost like they're coming to regular school. The parent can relax. We feed them breakfast and lunch here, so they can eat just like a regular school day. And the only difference is they're working in our lab quietly at their own pace. We give them headphones to tune out, to stay silent and stay focused on their work while the other students are working. And then, like I said, we have the aides in here along with our teachers there to help them. So it's pretty much, it's a nice flexible school. It's almost like a hybrid model in a way, but it's not. But that virtual lab has really been, I believe, the crucial part to provide that actual physical location and to have our staff here. Obviously, there are computer issues, like Chromebook issues, that we use Chromebooks. There can be issues with those computers. Obviously, Edmentum doesn't really have much to do with those computers. They have always been great with helping with the software, but if we ever have computer glitches here, we have a tech department housed right down the hall from our lab. So whenever a student's having an issue with their Chromebook, they're already here if they're at the lab, and we get everything fixed at once. They can always ask questions of me. I always have my door open when I'm not in meetings, and I can always talk with the students, answer any questions about scheduling or any concerns they have. So the parents really love that they have the online teacher from Edmentum, the great courser from Edmentum, but they also have district staff who is familiar with their area, familiar with the district and what their needs are. So the partnership between our lab and Edmentum's teachers has really been great, and we've got a lot of great feedback. Next slide. So our future goals, we want to increase focus on college and career readiness by leveraging the CTE and AP course options, as well as moving towards crafting of individual learning paths for each student tailored to a chosen career pathway. So for example, we have a few students right now who are in the new CNA class, Certified Nursing Aid class. We have a lot of students who want to become nurses, work in the medical field. So we're really trying to get them on track to, focus on career courses now, classes that are going to help them later and get ahead in their field. So when they go out to a trade school or a technical school or a college, that they're going to already have a leg up and have a plan, knowing what they want to do. We also have the AP courses for the advanced students and getting them ready for college as well. We like to point out when we talk with the parents, a lot of parents are concerned that they want their kid to go to college and be ready for that, and they're kind of concerned about sending them to cyber. And I always reaffirm that this is no different than the school day, other than the different format and the flexibility. We still have the ability to send kids to college. We just had a graduate last year that I believe went. We have a bunch planning this year to go to Arizona State and a few other schools. Some are going to even do an online learning option in colleges, and that's what I tell the parents. If they're in cyber school now, colleges have somewhat of their own cyber school per se. I went to Penn State University, and I went to the main campus when I was there, but they do have, a lot of people know they have Penn State World Campus. And a lot of other colleges have these options. So now students who are cyber school in high school, they don't have to adapt and really go to a campus. There are other colleges out there for them. And we let the parents know that not only do they have the option, but we'll be here to prepare them for that. We have the AP courses and these career-focused electives and science courses that really help with that. They also like our plan to individualize their learning path. Not every student needs an IEP to have their learning path individualized. We bring every student, every family in over the summer. We did it this past year, and just talk about what they wanted to do, what their plans were in life, and talk about some of the courses that would probably be best for them. So these are our focused future goals now. Now that we know the program can work for the students, we are really focusing on making sure that this benefits them beyond even their middle school and high school career, and this is gonna benefit them in the future. And like I said, Ed Options Academy has a lot of great courses. I know for us, a big one's the health sciences. So a lot of health science, first aid, nursing courses, things like that have been really helpful. And I just actually had a meeting with a parent on Monday who came in to talk about college and career readiness, and actually said they were floored with excitement about the options Edmentum and our program was able to provide, and even said they wish they had something like this for them, because they were just like their daughter, didn't really like the school day, didn't fit in, had some anxieties, and this would have benefited them. So we're already getting praise for our plan to start focusing on career goals, but that's our goal, is to get more kids ready for college and let these parents know we have a plan for them. We will individualize their learning path, and we're going to get them ready for beyond high school. Next slide. So if we could do this again. So as always, when you start anything new, especially, like I said, we didn't have a plan that worked. They had tried it before, but we didn't have a plan that ever worked. So you're always going to run into some road bumps, roadblocks, and you never really know what they are. Sometimes it can be things that you're not even thinking about. Other times it can be things that you thought was going to go A-okay, smooth, and then all of a sudden you hit a roadblock and it didn't work as planned. The first thing I want to talk about is the attendance policy. That was one of our biggest concerns last year, was the attendance policy. The schools, I had to get the middle school and high school administrators to talk about an attendance, and we really didn't have an agreed upon policy at first, so we had to kind of establish it. Some of the administrators wanted to have a policy that they got tracked daily attendance, and that if they didn't log in daily, at the end of 2 weeks, we'd send them back to regular school. I wasn't really a fan of that, because kids are coming to us for a reason, and to send them back to where they had problems really wasn't the answer for me. So we kept thinking, and I said, well, it's a pacing program, so let's factor pacing into this. And we went through about 4 or 5 plans, and it wasn't until about the middle of the year till I finally got them all to agree. We signed off on it, and it became our new procedure. And what we ended up doing was, kids, as long as the student was on pace, they were considered attending. When they started to slide behind pace, we gave them the regular calls on top of what their Edmentum teachers did. And if they didn't get on pace, we started doing a daily attendance tracker. A daily attendance was considered 3 hours was attending. So if they did 3 hours, they were attending, and they were going to get regular daily attendance taken until they got back onto pace. So that's been our attendance policy now, and it's worked ever since we established it. But it was a bit of a hiccup in our program, because in the beginning I had a plan of what the policy was going to be. Some of the administrators didn't like it and wanted to change it, and we had already started the school year. So I recommend, if we could have done this again, if you are planning yours now, make sure that all administrators and everybody involved agrees on an attendance policy, and you can set that in stone right away, because that was a bit of a headache for us, but we did work through it and it's working great now. Another one, check in regularly with parents and make sure they understand their role in providing student accountability. So another one is parents a lot of times will say, I didn't know I had an account, or I thought you were going to take care of it. I thought the teacher was going to take care of it. So what we really want to focus on this year, and we've been making a clear point, is to let the parents know we are going to send them emails and update them, and we are taking care of the student's education, but parents should also be providing accountability for their students. It's very difficult for us to get a student to work when they're at home. We don't see some of these students. Not every student comes into our lab. So we didn't see these students. We're sending emails, we're doing phone calls, and we're texting, and the parent was kind of oblivious or said they didn't understand. So what we made sure to do this year, and what you want to make sure you're doing, is check in regularly, remind the parents they are an education coach just like we are, just like their teachers are, and that they should play an active role. And I will say there are a lot of parents, and we even deal with some grandparents who are raising their grandchildren for other reasons, and they all are afraid of technology. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to log in. We've helped a few log in a few attempts, and they say they just can't do it. So we tell them that's not a problem. If you don't understand the technology, that's not a problem, but be talking with your student regularly, listen to our updates. We're here to make sure your student's working. We don't want them to slack, and we need their help. So we've really made it a point this year to talk and check in regularly with the parents and remind them that they need to provide some oversight just like we are, and that it's a group effort. And it has been going pretty well this year. But that is one thing that I want to hit to make sure to focus on if you are establishing a program. And then the third thing, develop a clear vetting process for students interested in the program. So in the beginning, actually, although we ended with 78, at one point we were around 100 students. And that was because, of course, like anything new, when a program opens, people hear these wild and interesting things about it. And some students had the wrong idea. Some students thought, well, this cyber school, this virtual academy is going to allow me to stay at home. They don't mark my attendance regularly. So I don't really have to do anything. Well, I'll just try this. And what they were doing is they were switching out of school, and school was working for them, but they heard that their friend who had issues in regular school joined the virtual academy. So a few of the students didn't really take it seriously, came into the program, weren't logging in. So we had to kind of get a cap on that. It was exploding. There was a lot of excitement, like I said, this new program that was working, helping a lot of people, and a lot of parents and a lot of students wanted to join for the wrong reason. So about a quarter of the way through the year, we finally established a plan, a vetting process, where all students who were interested had to meet with their principals and give a validated reason why they wanted to join. And I mean, we were pretty lenient with reasons, whether it was anxiety, whether they were failing a class, whether it was sleeping in attendance. If they had a legitimate concern as to why it wasn't working in the school day, we made sure to allow them into the program. Obviously, we want everybody to succeed. But what we were able to do is stop the kids who said they didn't have any problems. They just thought it would be fun to be able to work from home. And we told them, that's not always the best option. If school's working for you, that's great. But this is for students who need another option, who regular education doesn't work so well. So we did clear that up. And this year we started the vetting process right from the get-go, and it's been very beneficial. Our numbers are still great like they were last year, around the same numbers. We're helping the right students, and our students are staying in the program, because what we didn't want is those kids who we didn't vet in the beginning coming and going, which wastes a lot of people's time, and it's just very inconvenient, and it wastes their time in the education process. It wastes our time with creating accounts, and Edmentum's teachers do such a great job about reaching out. So they end up making, in the beginning of the year last year, we ended up apologizing, but they end up making calls to 20, 30 students who weren't very serious about it and ended up leaving the program anyway. So I will say, as exciting as it is, your program's going to get very popular. Just make sure to have some kind of vetting process where you make sure that you're allowing in the students who are taking the program seriously and avoiding the ones that are just going to come and go. So just have a vetting process, whether it's talking with an administrator, whether it's putting them on a 2-week trial period. We do that with a few students that we're still iffy on. If a student wants to enroll in the program, but we're still not sure if it's a great reason or if they're really going to actually do the work, we will put them on what's called a 2-week trial period, where we put them in one class. make sure they're able to log in, pass the material, communicate with their teacher. And when they show us they can do that, we do let them in the program. But like I said, those are the three things that if I had to redo it last year before the program started, I would make sure we had an attendance policy that we all agreed upon, administrators and myself, that we checked in regularly, reminding the parents that it wasn't just us, that they were a part of the education too, and then that we vetted the students into the program, making sure we were helping the right students and weren't wasting the students or anybody else's time. Next slide. So best practices and tips that I could give you. So one of my biggest ones would be to establish a website for your program that can be an information hub for students and parents. So if you look at my school district right now, or after you get off this webinar, you take a look at Shikellamy School District, you'll see that under Schools tab, I have what's called the Shikellamy Virtual Academy. And when you click on that, it takes you to a web page that I designed. The district, we use Google G Suite, so I was able to make a Google website and update everything I needed. And that was the most beneficial thing, I think, to me in starting our program, one of the most beneficial things as far as getting information out. So I have a student and parent notices thing right at the top left of the website with important updates, whether it's upcoming assemblies that kids can go to, student logs that need turned in, end of dates, testing dates, things like that. And then we have all the links they need to log into. So the Virtual Academy login, which is Edmentum's Maestro. We have the login link hyperlinked in right there. We have their email hyperlinked in. All the courses that Edmentum offers, I have the ones that we use. I have middle school and high school courses. I hyperlink those in there. So it's very easy for me to say to a parent when I meet with them, here's all the information we have. And then if you want any more information, you can always visit our virtual website. And we also remind them regularly that our updates are there. So the parents are always able to check in, see what the newest things going on is, and usually get any information they need. We also have all the staff who works for the program listed on there, all the guidance counselors in the district listed on there, our phone numbers, our technology department's phone numbers, Edmentum's technology department phone numbers, and then a little bit of information about our program on top of the student handbook was really beneficial. So it's kind of a one-stop shop, I call it, and it makes your life very convenient when you can give the students and talk to the students and parents about the information of the program and how it works, but then also having a reference for them to look at. It also helps parents who are interested and want to know more information. This stops a lot of phone calls we would probably get otherwise because they're able to see how our program runs, look at our handbook, look at the courses offered and things like that. So that has been one of the most beneficial things about our program is having a website with links and information there they can easily access. And then the other thing I want to mention is consider running your virtual program within one of your district's existing brick and mortar schools instead of its own independent school. What I mean by that is we have some districts even around us who run their cyber schools if it's their own building. So, for example, our virtual academy would have its own school building, its own school office, and everything like that. It would run as its own school, even if it didn't have a physical location. The problem with that is you're pretty much on your own. You have your own staff, and you're working as kind of a separate entity within the district. What we decided to do instead is kind of while it has its own separate school webpage, like I said, we actually run it as if it's a program within the district. There's a lot of benefits to that. One of the things is, you might have heard me say when I talk about our website, guidance counselors. We utilize the school's guidance counselors just like the other schools do. So if you're a high school student and you go from Shikellamy High School to the Shikellamy Virtual Academy, you keep your guidance counselor, which is a great benefit. It's the guidance counselor you've been working with your whole career here. They're familiar with why you joined the Virtual Academy. You've already met with them before, so it's nice being able to utilize them. We also utilize our administrators. The Shikellamy High School principals are involved. The middle school principals are involved. So when we're moving students back and forth between our programs, when they're coming to us, the principals are already familiar, already had the conversation, and they work very well with us in that regard. We also utilize their office staff to keep records. So all the health records and information records are still kept in the middle school or high school offices, which are really nice. So we are pretty much the Virtual Academy keeps the program running. We have the virtual lab and we keep everything going. But all the hard records, transcripts are kept with guidance, health records are kept with the nurse. So we still utilize those things. So it's kind of the same for everybody. So we don't have as much, how does it work in the Virtual Academy if it works like this in the high school? My answer usually is it works exactly the same. If they had a guidance counselor here at the high school, they have them here. If they need their health records, it's exactly where all the other students' health records are. So utilizing your program as a program rather than a school has a lot of benefits because you can utilize these other, like I said, the other resources and staff. We also work with them on field trips then because they're considered a high school or middle school student and just in a program, they are allowed to go on all the field trips and socialize at all the dances and things like that. And we do actually, right before I came into this meeting, we just had one of our students turn in a form. She's going to go with the regular middle school students next week to tour a tech school to get a couple of ideas on her future and what she could do. So another nice thing about having the program is you can utilize the assemblies, field trips and dances and things like that. And a lot of times it makes your answer easier. If they ask how it works in the virtual academy, it works the same as it does in the high school, except for the content. Like I said, records, utilizing resources of the staff and everything. So those would be the two big tips I give you. Establish a website with critical information and hyperlinks there they can just click into rather than send them to a bunch of different places. And to run your program as a program rather as its own school to utilize your resources. Next slide. Yep, and that does it for me. So I think I'm going to hand it on over to Ed Options then.
Yeah, thanks so much, Eric. So now we're going to turn it over to one of our Edmentum virtual learning consultants, Cynthia Rose, and she can give us a little more background on Ed Options Academy.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Eric. We really appreciate it. And I've luckily had the opportunity to work with Eric very closely the past 2 years, and it has just been such a joy seeing their program and seeing their program grow. So thank you for sharing with us, Eric.
Thank you, Cynthia.
All right, so Ed Options Academy. Ed Options Academy is a fully accredited virtual school. We partner with schools and districts to deliver rigorous content as well as research-based curriculum built to state and national standards. With Ed Options Academy, not only do you get the content, you also get our highly qualified state certified teachers that are experienced in online instruction as well. What's also really great about the program is that it is very flexible. Like Eric explained to you, they have kids that come in and they work in their lab, and then they have kids that will work at home as well. So it is a very flexible program designed for students to be in that virtual learning environment. Another thing that's really unique about Ed Options Academy is once you do become a customer, we are with you throughout the process. So you will always have us available for consultations. We check in with you quite frequently for account reviews just to keep you up to date on how your students are doing within the program. You have a big, large team that is surrounding you when you do become a customer of Ed Options Academy. So we are there with you throughout your implementation, and that's one thing we really like to focus on. So not only do you have us, you also have our customer support team who is also very knowledgeable in the program and will help you troubleshoot any technical issues that you might have. But this is just a quick little overview of everything that you have available to you with Ed Options Academy. So now I think we are going to move on to the questions portion. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yep, that's right, Cynthia. So thank you for that overview. And we have had a couple questions come in here. So first, Eric, and this is, I think, a little bit of a tricky one for anybody considering implementing a virtual program. Eric, what was your experience in working with the teachers union in your district? And were the Shikellamy School District teachers, was there any upset among them that you were using an online provider to kind of outsource and build your own program within the district using the Ed Options Academy teachers?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and it was something that came up right away. We did have a few teachers that were kind of, had a little bit of animosity toward the program. They thought that this was, they got kind of excited and thought this was a plan to, take over the school and everything was going to go virtual. But most of the teachers had a clear understanding of what we were doing. We were providing another option, and that schools we're still going to have the students they had. But one thing that we really made sure of, our superintendent was big with this. He's great with working with unions. He's been a superintendent for over a decade, so he had a lot of experience with this. And what he did is kind of put out a statement at one of our meetings with the district and as well as the union, that this is here to help other students. This is a program separate from the school. We are always going to have the school and the teachers who we have now working with students in brick and mortar, and that this was just another option, and that it was actually taking burden off the teachers rather than utilizing them and giving them extra students and extra technology to learn. We were utilizing Edmentum's teachers so they could handle the virtual aspect, and we weren't giving anything extra for to the teachers. But that is a good point, and like I said, some teachers in the union were concerned that this was going to interfere with the future, but by establishing that statement and meeting with the president of the union and the representatives, our superintendent did explain that this is it's just a program, separate program, providing another need like any other program would, and we are not infringing in any way on the teachers. So that's kind of how we dealt with that. But like you said, it could be different depending where you're at and how teachers unions handle that.
That's great. All right, so another one that we've had come in is you mentioned that there were a couple of previous attempts in your district to get a virtual program going, and neither of those worked out. What do you think set your virtual academy and this third try apart that made it successful?
That's a good question, and actually even the administrators themselves asked me that at one point when they realized that we had I think we were up to like 50 or 60 kids by like last Halloween, which was huge, because their goal was actually, I didn't mention that, their goal was to have 10 students by the end of the year, and we 7 times over that. We had almost 8 times the amount of students. But I think the key factors were one of them is the virtual lab and having staff here. From the past attempts, it sounded like they gave the director of education kind of the workload to do that, and it was the director of education working with the few students who did it, and that was it. They were using some courseware through our IU, which wasn't always the best, didn't always have the best help or support either. So it was kind of a mix of things, but I would say having a location here with multiple staff, myself and our other teacher and aides, so they still had district staff here, just like the school day, that they had an actual physical location to come to. That was new with my program. They had to stay at home no matter what they were doing before in their cyber school. They had to work from home or another place off-site. So providing a site where students could still work and still have a teacher next to them, I think, was crucial. But then also the extra staff. So rather than just having one person, the director of education, trying to run this program themselves, I had Mrs. Brady, who follows their attendance and does phone calls. And then we had the other teacher aide, who's now Miss Pacheco. She's there to help with academics when Mrs. Gittins is unavailable. And then Mrs. Gittins focuses on making sure the students are on pace and answering any problems they have. And then, of course, I'm here to help out with the schedules, and as well as utilizing those other resources. So it was a bunch of things, but I'd say having the physical virtual lab and the extra supporting staff from the district are 2 crucial things to provide on top of that. Not to mention Edmentum. We didn't use Edmentum in the past. So using Edmentum this time, and their teachers are phenomenal. We got a lot of praise, not from only our program, but from Edmentum, that their teachers reached out. Their teachers sent regular updates on their pacing down to the assignment, and were always available to reach out. So it was a lot of things, but having teachers from Edmentum that communicated regularly was also a plus too. So a whole bundle of things, but I think that's what really set us apart.
Great. Okay, another question here is, so if for a school that might be thinking about implementing a similar program, how much funding and how much money would you suggest, kind of earmarking to make it successful?
Sure. I guess it depends on how far they're going and what they're trying to do. But for us, it was pretty much, we set out a goal of we were going to have 10 students, and maximum we thought was going to be 30 students. So what we did is just budgeted based on how many students we were expecting, and then the amount charged by Edmentum, and that was our budget as far as our instructional budgeting goes. And then we budgeted for staff, however many you needed those. I'd say start with at least 3 people, which is good, 3 staff. And then after that, it's actually pretty cheap to free. We only really have about $5,000 or $6,000 in our other budget. That goes out for supplies. I get the kids all headphones who come in here. We also budgeted, I didn't mention this, we do social activities because some of the concern by the parents were they wanted to do this, but they wanted to have friends too. So we even let a little budget to take them on field trips ourselves. So we had a small budget that might have been like $2,000 to do field trips and lunches and little activities with social activities there. But other than that, it's basic supplies, just office supplies and things like that. The actual accounts from Edmentum and your staff. Other than that, there's really not too much of an expense unless your school doesn't use computers yet. The reason we didn't factor in Chromebook prices or computer prices was because the students in our district were already using those anyway. So the students who transferred to us already had a district provided Chromebook, and we didn't factor that into a purchase. So if you were starting your own program and your school district doesn't use computers, you would also have to budget that in. But to be honest, other than that, whatever the price you work out with Edmentum is really close to what your entire budget is, other than staffing, the few staff, because you don't need much supplies other than your general office supplies. Because the nice thing is, Edmentum, as long as you provide the computer, that's pretty much all they need. Edmentum provides the rest.
Great. All right. So another question about the staff within your program. So you've mentioned virtual lab teacher aides. Just want to clarify, are those Shikellamy district staff, or are those Edmentum staff?
Oh, good clarification. Sure. So those are actually Shikellamy School District staff. So we have Mrs. Gittens actually was already a teacher in our district, a learning support teacher, which is really nice. She has a special ed certification, so she's able to help students with IEPs, and she does all the IEP meetings, make sure we're fulfilling those obligations and everything. But the other two aides are actually Shikellamy employees, and like I said, Mrs. Brady she was the first one hired, and she's more or less like our secretary and our attendants, and she also checks on their pacing. She's hired for the district, and then our other aide is more of a paraprofessional, kind of helping support Mrs. Gittens through the educational component. But yes, those are, so if you count myself, Mrs. Gittens, and Mrs. Brady and Miss Pacheco, we have 4 Shikellamy staff, but the actual teachers of the courses were the Edmentum staff. But those are 4 actual staff.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. Let's see. And then I think the last question that I'm seeing here is so going back to some of the positive feedback that you've received from students and families, what do you think the biggest reason that families and students have decided to come back after that first year has been?
They told us, especially like our biggest success stories. One student, for example, hated high school, was ready to quit. She had an IEP, felt like she wasn't capable of learning, didn't feel as supported. Nothing against our district or anything, that the regular school day wasn't working out for her. What we got, the compliments we got, and the reason she was coming back, along with many other parents had similar explanations, was that we made the students feel like they were still capable, and that they had district staff here who lived in the area. It wasn't somebody from far away. They had district staff here who believed in them. We saw them out in the community. We told them that they were capable of doing great things, and really made them believe in themselves. She said that a lot of people kind of made her feel bad about going the cyber school route, and that it was something less, and she felt bad about that. But her mom couldn't have thanked us more. She re-enrolled with us again. Like I said, a lot of parents seem to be saying that we make their kid feel like they are able to do it. We are giving them the support, like I said, of district staff, and we communicate with them regularly. We encourage them to come in. So, and on top of our Edmentum teachers as well. They also say that the Edmentum teachers are very understanding, very helpful, and very flexible. So between the flexibility of the Edmentum program and the teachers, on top with our just local people from the area working with their students, people they know they can trust, and really giving them a chance and believing in their students. So that seemed to be the biggest thing, that they didn't have anybody locally who they felt by doing the cyber option they could really believe in them, but they got the support they needed from us as well as Edmentum. So support was really the biggest thing.
Great. All right. Well, that looks like all of the questions that we have for today. So Eric, just want to thank you again so much for sharing your story, telling us about all the wonderful stuff that's going on at Shikellamy Virtual Academy. And I also want to thank everybody again for joining us today. This webinar has been recorded, and we will be sending out the recording via email in just the next couple of days here. So again, thanks one more time, and we hope that you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.